Welcome to MCN and welcome to our middleweight sports bike test of 2024. Now, we're really excited about this class because it has absolutely exploded over the last couple of years. Whereas before it consisted pretty much of just the Ninja 650 and Honda's CBR 650, it is now blown up into a class that's not only absolutely packed with machinery, but is also turned into a race series now in BSB. But the point of this test was to see which was the best all-round middleweight sports bike. These bikes are built to be softer, they're built to be calmer, they're built to be sub 10 grand road bikes. So we've had a couple of days on the road. We've brought them to do a little bit of speed testing as well, as sport is in the name. And much to our surprise, the new king of this class, the best all-round middleweight sports bike, is Suzuki's GSX-8R. Before we get talking about the 8R, we're gonna bring it down from what we classed as finishing in last place and then move on to first. So I'm gonna bring you round to Honda's CBR 650R E-Clutch. Now, although this bike is technically new for 2024, not much of it has really changed compared to last year. So it has predominantly the same engine, predominantly the same chassis. There's been a few tweaks here and there, but nothing major. Now, the big change comes with the E-clutch module on the right-hand side. So that essentially works as your left hand. You don't actually have to use the clutch at all. Now, although it's a good system, it works reasonably well, it's actually cheaper than a quick shifter at just 100 quid extra on the retail price. But it isn't a great addition to a sports bike. We did some 0 to 60 testing earlier, and it was considerably slower with the E-clutch than it was with the manual clutch, which you can still use to override. And to be honest, that's the only party trick of the new CBR 650R. As a road bike, the CBR 650R is a great seller, and for good reason. It is a really decent all-round package. But the problem is, it just lacks that wow factor. It's the bike that all of us wanted to get on the least. The engine's a little bit forgetful, although it makes quite a bit of power. The chassis does its job nicely, but it doesn't really shout out to you. It's a bit soft, it's a bit lethargic, it's a bit heavy. It doesn't quite have that real sporty side to it that makes you feel confident to ride a bit harder. On the flip side, it is quite comfy, but it just doesn't really get your juices flowing. And because of that, it's finished last in our test. But then on the flip side, we're gonna go to the complete opposite end of the spectrum. So in fifth place, we have Yamaha's R7. Now, this couldn't be any more different to Honda's CBR 650R in terms of its riding position, its ergonomics, its geometry. It is built almost replicating R6 in its cornering abilities. And in that, it is so good. It's so aggressive. You can ride it really hard and you get loads of feel when you are pushing it to its absolute limits. We had some strong conversations about this because there have been 6 testers, we all of varying abilities, varying ages, and whereas Chris, one of our testers, would have loved to have had this the most, the rest of us, it was just a bit too aggressive and a bit too focused to be the best all-round sports bike. Where the Honda didn't have that little bit of edge, this is just all edge. And there's just no middle ground. It's really uncomfortable. If you're doing any motorway mileage on it, it's real pain on the wrist for someone of my size. And when you put someone of Neezy's height, who's 6 foot, he barely fits on it. To add to that, the engine isn't the fruitiest of the bunch. That parallel twin motor is getting on a little bit now and could really do with an update across this, the MT-07 and the Tenere range. So hopefully that's going to be coming soon. The Yamaha is a cracking bike. It's probably one of, if not the best looking bikes on this test. And if you want something that's really focused, that is a true sports bike in its nature and its name, the R7 is a brilliant package that will not disappoint. But if you want the best all-round sports bike, there are better machines out there. And talking of which, we're gonna go to something that's sort of middle of the range here. It's something that you might not actually expect to be in this class. It's Kawasaki's ZX-4RR. Now you may be looking at this thinking that Kawasaki have brought a knife to a gunfight and we should have put Kawasaki's Ninja 650 in instead. And to be honest, we did think about that, but the thing is, the Kawasaki Ninja 650 is a bit old in the tooth. It's very vanilla And when we've previously ridden it against the Honda's come out on top. So in terms of like a proper sports toury, gentle sports machine, we went for the Honda over that. We brought in the big guns, or the little guns from Kawasaki. Now, the thing that makes this bike so incredible and so exciting is the motor. Sure, it might be sub 400cc, but it's a screaming inline four that delivers the sort of thrills that got so many of us into biking. If you're a bit older and you're reminiscing about the old days, you want something that's comfortable, you know, a little bit easier to ride, a little bit softer, but you still want that excitement. The ZX-4RR delivers that in abundance. It revs incredibly, it makes so much peak power, and it really is just a bundle of fun to ride. It sort of encompasses what a sports bike is. It's really light, it's really agile, it's really easy to throw around. And what makes it even better is it's not too aggressive either. Although the riding position is focused enough that you can really get over the front and really get a good feeling through them shower forks, it isn't as aggressive as the R7. It's a really nice middle ground. For someone of my size, it fits me perfectly. We had one of our other staff on the test today, Charlotte, and she jumped straight for this because it had the lowest weight and the lowest seat height, and this is the bike that she actually felt the most comfortable on, even though she owns an SV650 and an Aprilia RS 660 herself. So it sort of goes leaps and bounds. As someone who's really experienced and loves that sort of engine configuration, that really high-end screaming with absolutely nothing down below, will enjoy this. And it will deliver not only a fun and exciting ride, but it's also really easy and manageable as well. But in comparison to the other bikes on test, it is still a bit underpowered. It makes under 30 foot-pound of torque. It's only making 29 foot-pound of torque. So at the bottom end, it really makes bugger all, to be honest. And when you're riding it with pretty much anything else, if you're riding it with parallel twins and stuff like that, it just is really, really hard to keep up with them because you've got to be in the right rev range all the time. We did a few 0 to 60 tests, we did a few drag races, and from 0 to 25, 0 to 30, this thing just gets eaten up. It's a bike that needs to be ridden hard. It's more of a Sunday afternoon bike than it is a one bike machine that you'd use for everything, which is why it hasn't finished higher as the best all-round sports bike. And now we're getting to the top three. Now, we had really high expectations for this bike. It's Triumph's Daytona 660. When this thing was released, it looked like the perfect package. It's got that gorgeous 660cc triple motor. It's got the chassis from the Trident, which has been altered a little bit. It's got basically everything that you'd think you'd want from a middleweight sports bike. And we're going to start off with the good stuff, because there is a lot of good stuff. It is a good bike. For starters, I'd say the engine is the best out of the lot. That inline triple is just an absolute blast to ride. It makes such a good noise. It makes so much power. And it just delivers from the bottom all the way to the top. It's addictive in the way that it screams. It's just really fun and really exciting. It's also reasonably comfortable too. It's quite spacious, whether you're my height or if you're sort of getting into the 6 foot region. There's been not so many issues with space either. Another thing to mention is it actually has brilliant brakes. The brakes have been really good, especially compared to some of the other bikes on this test. But the thing that lets this down, and the thing that let it down when I rode it on the world launch, was just the way that it doesn't have that real crisp handling. So we tested it on the roads of Spain and really struggled to get a front end feeling with it. It just felt a bit vague. The geometry felt a bit off. It just felt like it was sitting on its rear too much. Now I've noticed that they have put a bit more preload on the rear shock and it has made it a little bit better, but it still has that vague feeling through the front end. When you want to ride it a bit harder, you have to really load the front end and trail brake into a corner to get it turning. For a Triumph sports bike, it just doesn't deliver that crisp, clean front end that we've all come to know and love. And to be honest, that's the missing part of this bike. It's something that could have been so amazing, but it's just missing that last few percent that would make it almost perfect, to be honest. And it's a real shame, as the engine is amazing. You know, the gearbox works nicely. The brakes are amazing. It's just a little bit off, and because of that, and because this class is now so close and so competitive, it misses out on the top 2 spots. That's where we come to number 2, because Aprilia's RS 660 may be getting on a bit now, but it is still a cracking machine. I mean, just look at it, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's got a full electronics package with an IMU that's really nice. It's something that none of the other machines have. Like, it even has cruise control, which is a nice touch. It's got a nice dash, it's got a reasonably nice finish, and it is a gorgeous thing to ride. Whereas the Triumph isn't particularly poised, it isn't particularly focused, it feels a bit sluggish on the front end. This is on the opposite end of the scale. It's absolutely gorgeous how it turns. If we were going to be doing this test on track, I actually think the Aprilia would have walked away with it, as it did on our previous test that we did a couple of years ago when it went up against the R7 and the CBR 650R. Yet on the road, it's still an absolutely beautiful thing to ride. The engine is the most powerful of the lot, or Aprilia claim it is, and it really feels throaty. It's got a really nice ring to it as you get up to the red line. It's an engine that just wants to be revved, and it doesn't really sound like a parallel twin. It's got a really distinctive roar to it. It's a bike that sort of outweighs its capacity. It feels more like a baby RSV4 than it does a bigger A2 bike or a big budget middleweight machine. And although it's slightly more focused in terms of the riding position, it's not overly aggressive. It just does everything, and it does everything to a reasonably good standard, which is what has placed it second and got it so close to the win, if we're honest. But as an all-round sports bike, it's still a bit uncomfortable. It could still be a bit cramped, and the engine is quite eager as well. It doesn't really like to be ridden slow as much. It's a bike that is definitely on the sportier end of the segment, but it's not really the best all-round machine. The best all-round machine is reserved for this. It is Suzuki's GSX-8R. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you, but when Suzuki released this bike, I was a little bit underwhelmed, as I think many people were, as there were so little changed between the 8S donor bike and the GSX-8R. Yet, when we rode it on the launch earlier this year, we got to ride it on track for a significant amount of time, and we got a nice road ride on it, and it absolutely blew me away how such little change can make such a drastic difference. What has made this bike the winner is how it does everything to a really good standard. Whereas something like the Honda's really comfortable but doesn't have the edge, the Kawasaki's really screams and is exciting but doesn't have the torque, the Yamaha is just really aggressive but it's got no comfort. The Triumph is sort of a decent all-rounder but just lacks that sport, and the Aprilia is sort of almost there for everything, but it's just a bit too eager and a bit too excitable to have all the time. The Suzuki just sort of takes all of them little bits and fits it all in the best package. The highlight for me is how this thing handles. Although it looks a bit like a shopping trolley with these big high risers, you've got the reasonably low pegs, it is actually a really, really confidence-inspiring machine to ride fast. The reason for that is purely on how stable this thing is. Although it doesn't look like it, you can really rail that front end into corners, and you get so much feedback through the suspension. Although it's non-adjustable, the settings that Suzuki have dialed into it are absolutely incredible. They've managed to dial in a really nice balance between being supportive enough that you can ride it hard, but it's not too stiff, it's not too responsive over bumps, it doesn't rebound and kick you out the seat. It's just a really nice, pleasant road bike. And even when we rode it on track at Monte Blanco on the launch, it really surprised us to how hard it can be ridden as well. It's a bike that covers a massive span of speeds and styles of riding. And the engine is a really nice thing to ride as well. It's got so much torque. Although it is another parallel twin, it just picks up power wherever you are and creates quite a lot of it as well. You never feel like you're really wanting much more, and it is a fun, exciting motor to ride. Comes with a quick shifter and auto blipper as standard, which is nice, especially as the Triumph and the Yamaha don't. And And the tech package is really nice on it. It's really basic, it's really simple. The buttons work really well. The dash is really easy to navigate. Even little things like it has the best mirrors of the bunch. You can actually see what's behind you, whereas a lot of the other machines are just buzzing around. You can't see anything. You can't see anything. But the thing that makes this bike the winner is we've got such a varying level of riders on this test, and this is the bike that we all agreed on would be the one that we'd want to take home. For me, it's a bike that you can ride really, really sportily. It's a bike that you can ride really quick. You can have really good fun on, and it's really confidence inspiring. It's got a reasonable size pillion seat to put the missus on, and it's really comfortable too, because I do like doing big miles. For Neezy, who's 6 foot, it fits him really well as well, and he loved the motor. It's a really easy bike to just jump on if you're looking to come up into the sports bike, if you're looking to come up into bigger capacity bikes. So what Suzuki have done here is they've put together a really good package that sort of hits everything that you'd want from a middleweight sports bike. And that's what makes this thing so class. When you've got so much competition and so much good competition as well, the fact that the 8R has emerged victorious among such a varied selection of riders pretty much proves how good a job Suzuki have done with this. Now, we haven't been on track with this test. The idea was to find the best all-round sports bike, and to be honest, these bikes are going to be predominantly ridden on the road anyway. But don't fret, as we've got a couple more tests coming up. We're going to be doing a conventional Supersport test with your conventional size machines, and we've also got an A2 test planned as well. What we're going to do then is we're going to put the winners from each of them tests on track and see what is the best sports bike of 2024. But for the middleweight class, it's Suzuki and the GSX-8R.